Welcome back. This is the last segment that we're talking with Eli Esri. And he's traveled all over the world, and he is the worldly man. He's been to more countries than I have, maybe not, but I was fortunate to travel all over. So let's talk about, because the world is affected what happens in the United States, it affected what happens in Middle East and Israel, what happened, let's say, in Ukraine, in the war between Ukraine and Russia. You've been to Ukraine.
I've been to Ukraine twice since the war started.
Okay.
The reason I've been to Ukraine is because the basic Jewish communal infrastructure in Ukraine is operated by Chabad, and we've been very involved in humanitarian relief for people in Ukraine. The war started, and since then also we continue to do that, providing food and shelters and generators and things like this. So I had to bring American philanthropists to Ukraine so they could see what's, from within the Jewish community primarily, what's going on there. And by engaging with them so they would be supportive, like for instance for Passover we made sure to provide food for all over Passover, or like there's a tremendous amount of power outages in Ukraine, so we installed generators in Jewish communal buildings all over the country so people have places to go and they have air conditioning and food and things like that. So because I've been involved with that, I've been to Ukraine a couple times since the war started. I had never been in Ukraine before. No, I had been in Ukraine once before, many years ago.
So I was born in Ukraine, in the city of Odessa, right on the Black Sea. So I kind of still keep in touch with some of my friends. And you just talk about that we put in generators, but it wasn't just for Jews. It helped.
No, the work that we done touched the whole community.
Right.
Our primary focus was on the Jewish community, but there's no question we helped everybody we could do. Also, we helped many people evacuate when the war started. A lot of people left, they've come back, which is another story into itself, because anybody between 20 and 60, male between 20 and 60 in Ukraine is not allowed to leave the country. They can be drafted theoretically. Mm-hmm. And they are drafting a lot of people because they're seeing that they have a manpower crisis in Ukraine in the military. So but the point was that we can't stand by the side when there's a war going on. We have to do something about it, and that's why we work very hard to raise money here in the United States and around the world to help those people suffering in Ukraine go through this crisis. Hopefully, I'm not a politician, so I'm not the guy. Marco Rubio hasn't called me yet, so I have no idea what's going on, but that's not my job. Our job is to help those in the need, but hopefully there'll be a way that we can bring this conflict to an end, because it's, I was speaking to a friend of mine, a rabbi in Ukraine a few weeks ago. He said, you have no idea the shelling. He's 20 miles from the border. He says, we've been shelled the whole night. So it's really not a wonderful situation.
I know, and one thing that I want people to understand, especially where I came from, Odessa, which is a big commercial port. So whatever happens with the war, all of a sudden the ships with grain couldn't leave Odessa. That means in Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe and the world. And a lot of African countries would get their grain from Ukraine.
Right.
And all of a sudden the Russians blockaded and they couldn't ship the stuff to you.
Not only that, you can't even get into Ukraine by plane. You have to take a train or a car. I took an overnight train from near Warsaw. One time I went there through an overnight train. The other time I went to Western Ukraine, and I flew into an airport in Slovakia. I forgot the name of the town, and we took a car and we had to drive across the border and got into the Western Ukraine. You can't get into the country by plane. The airspace is totally closed off, and the economy there is suffering greatly. The people are suffering greatly, and the war is a real tragedy.
Well, any war is a tragedy, but the war in Ukraine specifically affects many other countries who depend on their harvest of grain.
Right. So that's been limited, and that money that was coming in from exporting all that, the grain, etc., all over the world, is you don't have that income coming into Ukraine. So the simple farmer in Ukraine has got the stuff, but where's he going to sell it? He's not going to get the same price. So it's been a real tragedy. Let's just hope they find a way to bring peace to Ukraine.
Well, I'm thankful that we have a president that is anti-war. It doesn't matter what it is. He wants to stop it at any cost. Either it's a war in Ukraine, either it's a war in Israel, between the Gaza, between the Houthis, between the Hezbollah. I basically don't want anybody to die because I don't want the next generation being decimated.
I agree with you, but at the same time, it's important. I'm very concerned with his negotiations with Iran, because if he makes another version of Obama number one, it's not good, because Iran cannot be allowed to stand with any capability for nuclear weapons. And I was very troubled this last week when he just stopped the bombing of the Houthis without even consulting with Israel when the airport had been attacked the day before. So on one level, I think it's important to have a strong president here in the United States and exert this, but at the same time we have to use a little bit of discretion and the use of that power and use it smartly and intelligently. So I'm a little bit in the middle on that issue. Again, my issue is not politics, but I realize the ultimate end game for Israel is the issue of Iran, because Iran is a fundamental religious state that has again used all its resources. That country is going through unbelievable inflation. People are suffering there economically. They have no sense of freedom, and they're taking all their money and they've invested it in creating this arc of conflict with Israel. They back Syria, thank God Syria fell. They back the Hezbollah, they back the Hamas, they're backing the Houthis. And I don't think that we can afford to make an easy compromise with Iran when they are right now very, very weak.
I agree. Just to give you a little bit perspective, how this money from Iran was used by Hamas. Hamas is 23 miles long, but only 3 miles wide. That's it. That's how big it is in Israel. Now, do you know how many miles of underground tunnels they built?
More than the New York subway system.
No, it's 451 miles. Basically, there is a city, like multiple cities underneath, that you can drive a whole truck to it. So instead of making a paradise, building hotels and improving life of their own citizens,
they invested in terror. And who's the head of the snake? It's Iran.
It's Iran, of course. And you know, the proverb is the fish stinks from the head, and Iran is the head of the stinky fish.
Yeah, well, listen, we are facing very unique challenges, and hope we will be able to navigate those challenges and have a greater sense of peace and stability in the world.
Now, speaking about the world, one of your daughters married to Australian rabbi.
Yeah.
And
2 of my kids are married to Australians.
Oh my God! Now, to see, I learned something new today. I thought it was only
My son is
one.
living in Australia. I have a daughter married to an Australian. Yeah.
So tell me, throughout your years, you went and traveled all over the world. How do people greet you? Are they curious who you are? What are you doing in their
I'm just
country?
a regular-looking guy. You know what? If you act with a sense, first thing, the most important thing is you need to learn. It says in the teachings of Judaism, they have to treat each person b'sever panim yafos, with a sense of dignity and respect. So the first thing is people feel and act as a reflection to you. So when you walk on an airplane and you give a smile to the flight attendant, and you sit down next to the person next to you, and you whatever, and the same thing, you greet them, you teach them, whatever. I find, listen, I have not encountered almost no anti-Semitism. I look pretty Jewish. I've traveled in a lot of interesting places. I don't hide my identity. I don't believe in hiding my identity. I've been to almost every European country. I've been to South Africa a couple times. I've been to Ukraine. I've been to Russia twice. And I was in Russia a little over 2 years ago. I walked around Red Square looking the way I look like today. I traveled all over Russia about little over 2 years ago. And I felt very comfortable. I was in Latvia a few months before. It's a question of how you carry yourself. If you have a sense that you're comfortable in your own skin, and you feel a inner sense of security, and you treat everybody around you with a smile, okay, you're going to encounter somebody here and there. But guess what? I think we live in a remarkable world. We have different cultures. There's what to learn for different kinds of people. The Russians like borscht and vodka. They think vodka's Coca-Cola. I don't know. and the French like good cuisine, and the English have no idea how to cook. So you have each one of these countries has something remarkable and unique. And Israel's very interesting from a gastronomic point of view, because people came from countries all over the world to live in Israel. So on one block you have restaurants that could be an Italian, a French, a this, a that, a Tunisian, a Moroccan, and the choices in cuisine are unbelievable, because people came from all these different countries with their unique cuisines. But what I have found is that and I've also been able to discover interesting Jewish communities. I was in Wellington, New Zealand a few months ago. Small Jewish community, used to be very large. It's a small Jewish community, originally of refugees, and they're holding on, thank God. But it's interesting to see different cultures, meet interesting places, and realize that the world is a wonderful, intriguing, diverse place, and God created this very intriguing, wonderful world, and we need to understand it and appreciate it.
I love it. Although I will beg to disagree with you with one thing, that English cannot cook. I was in England, in London, in Covent Gardens. There is a restaurant called Rules that Churchill used to frequent.
Oh, well,
and I end up eating there, and the food is pretty good.
Well, I'll let them have their fish and chips.
That's fine. No. That's the beauty of agreeing to disagree. You entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to mine. There is certain things that I like about their cuisine, certain things I do not like. But going back to the trial,
But I want to add one thing about seeing other countries. And this
Okay.
is the problem with Americans. Americans, number one, don't necessarily understand there's a big world beyond themselves. If they watch the news, you have no idea what's going on in Ghana. You have no idea what's going on in New Zealand. We have in a certain kind of tunnel vision. Secondly is when they are encountering other countries and other cultures, we need to appreciate the fact that each one of them have their own unique history, and we have a tendency to see things from a very kind of narrow vision. And when you travel and you interact with different people and you learn there's different histories and different cultures, then you can have a broader appreciation of the world itself.
So, to kind of parrot this, in my previous job, I was fortunate enough to travel all over the world. And all of a sudden said, Jan, you're going to go to Japan, to China, to India, and you got to make a big deal. I went there, I met the people, come back, I said, I got the deal. And everybody's laughing at me. And I don't, wait a second, I don't understand. Then I actually took and read books about their culture. And you are 1,000% correct. When you go there, you cannot go there with the mentality of American. You got to know how their culture works, what makes them tick, what's important to them, because what is important to me may not necessarily be important to them. So when you go to the other country, it doesn't mean that you got to give up your identity, but you need to understand that there are different people with different culture and with different
By the way,
ideas.
this is one of the dangers which is going on now with the conflict in Gaza. You have all kinds of people with opinions, especially college students who really need a better education. And they have all this understanding of a situation, but they've never been there. They've never walked the streets. They've never talked to the people. The craziest thing, there's a thing called Queers for Gaza. Now, if Hamas knows that that's your approach to life, they're going to hang you by the nearest tree. So, but the problem is, we can't make judgments on things unless we study and understand them. And I have the same rule with politicians. People tell me, this one thinks this one thinks this. I tell them, listen, I'm not going to judge a politician unless I met him or know him a little bit, or I know somebody who met him. Because I've been lucky in the last couple of years to get to know a lot of, at least the leaders of Israel. And so you have a different understanding when you sit something across the table for an hour or two and you talk to them. So we need to be careful about being judgmental in general of other people, and understand that everybody is unique, because what is so special that every single human being was created by God. That means that every single human being has something that's unique that they can contribute to the world. And if we look at other human beings and saying, listen, I was created by God and they were created by God, and I have something which is unique about me, and I have certain gifts and certain strengths and certain weaknesses. One person may be a great artist, the other person may be a great lawyer, the third one may be a great engineer, the third one is a great doctor. And we understand that each one has divine gifts, then we look at the human being in a fundamentally different way.
So, just from my own experience, I travel to Germany, and when I was having lunch with the young engineer, he said, "Oh, you're Jewish from Russia." He would start apologizing to me, and I said, "Please stop. I got nothing against you. It's something happened long time ago. You're good people, and I'm willing to. I'm not going to hold any grudge." But anyway, we come to the end. There was a wonderful discussion. I really enjoyed it. And I want to thank all our viewers that stuck with us for 3 different segments. And I hope you learned a lot. And we're going to bring you more interesting ideas and topics. Next week, I'm going to have an authority that written a book about CRT and DEI. And I hope you'll tune in for this very interesting conversation.
Hi, I'm Rebitza Naomi, and welcome. The human lifespan is similar to a shadow. It's fleeting, and so is our time. Rabbi Tarfon Omer, Hayom Katzar v'hamlacha meruba. The day is short and the work is much. In life, we allow ourselves to get distracted by all of the different pursuits that we are looking for. Social status, wealth, but God presses us. Not only does he offer a reward, but he demands that we make something of ourselves. It's going to be hard, but at least we know that if we have a vision and we pursue kindness and good deeds, we will realize our full potential.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.